Sup everyone, welcome back to another video, and today of course we are live on YouTube right now, and if you want to join, make sure to join Wednesday, Saturday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Here with amazing chat, we pretty much kind of just went over Eula, and I mean, at this point, you guys read the title, you guys see the thumbnail. We're here today to really kind of hammer home Eula and how she kind of have fallen from grace as this once cryo queen that wields physical damage, right? So, here's the thing about Eula. What isn't wrong with Eula is really what I want to start this video off with, because I've been here rambling with chat for the last hour or so, and yes, I have talked pretty much non-stop about Eula for an hour now. Don't worry, I'm not going to keep you guys here for an hour. The whole point is to consolidate this for you guys, so let's start from the very beginning. Her burst skill. Now, anybody who tells you, yo, I can do this and that and this other stuff with Eula, it's not like they're lying, but it's kind of like when I tell you, hey, oh my god, your car is amazing, but I use my car to sleep in it. It's not really wrong, but like, you buy a car, you own a car, so you can benefit from its transportation value, right? Like no one really is buying a sedan to look for ways to live inside it, because that's not what the feature was. Eula's entire pull value and feature is that burst skill of hers, is the fact that she has this huge backloaded damage in her kit where she can hit for insane numbers. Even for free to play, a couple 100,000 is quite respectable. For free to plays, it could be the difference between, let's say, an abyss clear and not clearing it. So then why is there a problem? It's because Genshin Impact as a game has evolved beyond what Eula's kit was initially designed for, okay? And as the game has evolved, there has been in fact, there has been no effort to keep up with this evolution of the game. So with her burst skill, what currently I feel is wrong is that when you use your burst, there are many things you have to keep track of. Not only do you have to make sure you are consistently stacking her burst, but at the same time, you have to make sure that when it explodes, all enemies that you need to hit have to be within the range. And finally, if you align that, it has to crit. Now, for the high constellation Eula players, maybe it doesn't have to crit, but for the vast majority of people playing Eula, you have to get it to crit. You have to make sure that all the enemies are in the spot when it explodes, and they're not doing some BS underground or dimension shifting or like jumping high up into the air kind of stuff to dodge the explosion. Any one of these factors that goes wrong, it's not that, oh, like this could go wrong, it's fine. No, any one of these things goes wrong, you are restarting your run. So this makes it incredibly frustrating if you want to put Eula like in the second half of a chamber, meaning that if you don't get this in one run, you might end up sitting there rerunning the first half as well, because when you retry, you have to run through the first half. Let's say your first half took you a long time to perfect a run. It puts an immense amount of pressure to make sure Eula gets everything she needs to succeed. Now, yes, there are margins for error. Let's say if one mob didn't get hit, whatever, right? Just stack it up or use the stuff and deal with it and take it out. Maybe run the clock down for an extra 30-40 seconds, but it is not satisfying. There's very little characters in Genshin Impact where it's this punishing. The level of punishment here is just immeasurable. Now, I understand the high risk, high reward playstyle, but there are other characters that are high risk, high reward. Like Zhao is constantly lamenting, bleeding, suffering when he's using his burst skill. Hu Tao, for some reason, every time she uses her elemental skill, she's losing chunks and chunks of her health. These are all high risk, high reward, and there are very consistent ways to counter it and to make sure that it's not going to become a detriment to your gaming experience. Yes, I am saying the fact that Eula's kit is so overly complex in all these aspects, and these things aren't like, some people would say it's a skill issue, but I would argue against it because it's not necessarily a skill issue. While skill can compensate and make up for these problems, be like, you won't have these problems if you're just good at the game. But in my opinion, skill should be something that is fun to obtain, to chase after. You can't make a feature into a game that is just pure annoyance and say like, oh, but that's a skill issue. right? Let's say if every time you wanted to do damage in Genshin Impact, it doesn't matter what reaction you play, you have to make sure your character spin 360 degrees, and if you're 1 degree over 360, let's say you overspun, doesn't work, spin again. If you underspun, doesn't work, spin again. Does that sound like a fun feature to you? It's skill though. It is skill. It takes skill to perfectly calculate that 360 spin, right? Okay, let me just do my 360 spin. Your camera, like your character has to do a 360 spin. Oh, was that a 360 spin? That's a 360 spin. Now I can continue with my combo and damage. What's the point of that? Right? Like, why would you design it like that? It doesn't make any sense. I know I'm exaggerating, but I'm trying to make a point on the spot here. But the point is, something could be skill based, but it could be a little too over the top and it stops being fun. I'm telling you guys right now, out of all the players that I have talked to who have stopped playing certain characters, Eula ranks very high up there. The main reason is that it's just way too overly complex to make her feel good, meaning that too many things have to fall into place in just the right way for her to be efficient. And as time has gone on, other characters have come out who have not only trumped her at C0 but even at C6. More consistent characters who have less hassle, characters who have basically higher ceilings and better yields with little investment. Eula is not really a cheap character to build either. I mean, yes, she has free-to-play options and weapons, and her C0 is fine. It gets the job done. But remember, she is still a hyper carry. And what are hyper carries in Genshin Impact? Hyper carries in Genshin Impact are notorious to be a little more demanding when it comes to resources. So it really doesn't help Eula's case that she's also a hyper carry. Think of some of the more popular Eula compositions and teams. Hyper carry teams tend to have multiple characters funnel resources into one main character to deal the damage, and that one character shoulders the burden of the entire team. And if this character cannot perform or underperforms or struggles, your whole team is like going to lose 80% of their DPS output, right? Think of Raiden hyper carry, right? Raiden, Sarah, Bennett, and Kazuha, and then you whiff Raiden's burst skill. Her Inazuma, Reign Supreme, bam, and then you hit nothing. Do you realize how much damage you've just lost on that team? Whereas if it was Raiden National, sure, Inazuma, Reign Supreme, oh, that whiffed, it's okay, I got Xiangling, I got Xingqiu, like you know, stack the damage up, baby, let's go. Same with Ito. If you completely mess up his burst skill, you activate his burst skill when the enemy is like in an animation sequence, or like when the Golden Wolf Lord decide to like take a stroll up top. You're just sitting there with your Ito burst waiting as it ticks away. That's a huge DPS loss. Hyper carry teams are incredibly punishing for you to mess up the hyper carry's rotation, timing, or skill sequence. Okay, understand that Eula is one of those characters where if you don't get things just right, you've basically screwed yourself. Now, I haven't even gotten to the point where we're talking about the new dendro stuff, because once we start talking about the dendro stuff, that's when the real pain comes. You guys don't want me to talk about the dendro stuff because you yourself, deep down, you know what the hell is going on with the current way Genshin is progressing, right? I've made a video saying that in the future, I believe new cryo characters are going to come out that are melt focused. Eula is not one of those characters. Maybe some old cryo characters can even kind of edge in and benefit from the fact that melt will get developed into a proper meta composition. Maybe Ganyu is going to benefit from it. Maybe Ayaka's gonna benefit from it. Kaya's gonna benefit from it, right? Like, oh my goodness, Rosaria's gonna benefit from it. But Eula, right? Eula is left out. Understand that Eula doesn't exist in that equation. She is a pure physical DPS unit. No amount of hopium copium belief is gonna make that any different. So in the end, if physical doesn't receive some love from Hoyoverse, Eula will remain in this state, and let me tell you, it's going to get worse and worse. Dendro is here, right? Quicken, the electro aspect, the hydro aspect is developed. Now they're developing the pyro aspect, and guess what? Fontaine's gonna come out. Do you think any hydro character is going to synergize with Eula going forward? Very difficult to picture that, right? Like maybe an electro character, maybe another Geo character, but a Hydro character? Unlikely. What about a Pyro character in Natlin? Unlikely. The next time you likely may see some kind of resemblance of hope maybe is Shiznaya, right? And who knows? In between, Hoyoverse might throw her a bone. Most hypercarry team has their dedicated supports, meaning supports that are designed to buff them. Maybe Eula will get one. In Shiznaya, like what, 2-3 years from now? How relevant would she be then? What if the new character, much like Faruzan coming out with Skarm, what if they just release a new physical carry? How relevant will Eula be? What if they take everything they've learned from game design and the meta development into that new physical carry? Where would that leave Eula? Do you guys honestly think they'll come back and be like, oh my god, our poor girl, let's like lift her up out of poverty? Look what they did to Venti. I hate to bring this up, but if they're willing to do an Archon dirty like that, do you really think they're gonna come back and hold her hand through thick and thin and pull her into the front of the stage again? I'm not trying to doom post Eula, but I really struggle sometimes to understand how some people can DM me in Discord, go on like this huge rant and tangent saying that I've wronged Eula and I don't understand how she truly is supposed to be played. I don't understand her full potential, and that she's actually a top 5 character in the game, and that she can easily hit like 60-70k normal attacks and stuff like that, and that she's completely fine without her burst, and that sometimes they play her without even using her burst. I'm not denying Eula's power here. I'm not saying she's not a good pull for people who love her playstyle and willing to put in the work to learn and master the range of her burst, how many hits it takes, and what stacks it's at. So when you can like cut out of her, then you can preemptively use her burst. And there's plenty of Eula mechanics and intricacies to be mastered here. I'm not denying that, but I'm just saying it's very disingenuous for people to go out of their way to push this character onto other people, especially newer players, to say like, oh yeah, Eula is a top carry, man. Like Eula is better than Hu Tao, Ganyu, Zhao. Like she's the highest DPS in the game, bro. Like dude, 1 second, 500k. Any other, like you need to like Raiden C2 to rival that kind of damage, baby. But they're not telling them about like the 4, 5, 6, 7 seconds they spent to charge up her burst. They're just saying that one, or like they're like half a second, bro. Like instantaneous. It's like you just get that's 800k, bro. My C6 Eula, listen, like you see what Yelan can do. Eula can do that in the snap of a finger, like half a second, and I'm getting like 2 million damage, bro. In Abyss, it's just, it's not true. It's not real. These things are made for showcases. They're not practical, and even if it were practical, you're fishing for it. You're constantly doing reruns. You're getting that perfect scenario to have it happen. It's not just a snap of a finger. It's not just like at the drop of a heartbeat. It is very difficult, and a lot of effort goes into not just the artifacts, but like the primo gems to even get her to C6 and get her weapon and all that stuff. For that, you can get a Yelan, blindfold yourself, press R, and left click your way to victory, and you're beating out entire teams of characters. I'm telling you guys, it's not the same. Constellations are all valued at the same price for 5 stars. It's not like Eula's constellations are cheaper than Yelan's constellation. There are, if you're going for raw power, there are better options out there. Eula is a character that has her unique uses, very unique, and she's slowly slipping away even from Genshin Impact, in my opinion. Like a physical team Superconduct just doesn't even feel in the same like stratosphere or dimension as the current like dendro stuff. Even comparing Superconduct to the old like vaporize melt stuff like that, electro charge swirl and crystal. Goddamn, well, crystallize will leave for another video, but even against the traditional stuff, for the vast majority of them, Superconduct feels out of place. It doesn't feel like a reaction. It feels more like an artifact set. It feels more like a character's constellation. It feels such like a small little thing that isn't truly deserving of a reaction. I mean, look at Hyperbloom, look at Quicken, look at Spread, look at how complex and interesting a lot of these reactions can become. And then you look at Superconduct, and it's like, oh, a debuff, physical resistance, cool, right? Well, what's beyond that? There's very little. beyond that. I really hope going forward HoYoverse can reevaluate what it is to be a physical carry in Genshin Impact and take that, elevate that, work on that. Make physical carries just as prominent. It doesn't have to be like the best in the game, but it has to have a place, man. It has to have a reason to exist. Right now, I find it difficult to even recommend Eula to people. Like, what's the reason? Like, if you like her, pull for her. But I can look at Nahida, I can look at Alhaitham, I can even look at Yaimiko nowadays and give people like a somewhat legitimate reason to invest into them. But Eula, not really. Okay, and it's a little frustrating. Till next time, urge y'all to stay safe. Peace, peace. Thank you so much, chat, for sitting through this. I know it's more of a ranty video, but I need to respond, right? When people ask, I need to respond. And I think this is gonna be a very rare video I make. I thought about making a Venti version of this, but Venti doesn't need me to make videos about him. Really, I think the Venti community really would appreciate it if I left his name out of my mouth. So until next time, stay safe. Peace, peace. Bye-bye.